And with our cardboard live extension that we have running now, we have our players to watch, but you actually have access to just full standings for the tournament if you want to check in on how your friends are doing or a player that you're a particular fan of.
Yeah, and we're going to be updating that every round, so if you just click on the Cardboard Live extension, you'll be seeing not only the deck list for the players on screen, but also those full standings each time.
And we are underway here. Looks like Jonathan Rosum was on the play. It was a tapped Watery Grave and a tapped Godless Shrines how he's starting, though Jody Keith not up to much either. Cinder Barons into Mountain. And then here is a Drowned Catacomb for Rosum back on Keith. Mountain into Goblin Chain Whirler. That'll be hit by a Mortify, though Rosum will take one first.
Yeah, so this matchup, we're going to see a fairly, I would say, not boring game one, but Jody Keith's deck is very heavily geared towards beating aggro decks. Cards like Lava Coil, Shock, various removal spells like that, and not a whole lot of anti-control stuff. After sideboard, he's going to get access to a lot of discard spells, as well as Legion Warboss to really turn the corner. And we're going to see Theater of Horrors, hopefully, as one of the best options Rakdos midrange has against these Esper control decks.
Thought Erasure is where Rosum will start on turn 4. Sees a hand of Karn, Shock, Lava Coil, Siege Gang Commander, Carnival, and a Swamp was the last card. Siege Gang Commander was the take. Rosum will keep a card on top, but no fourth land drop.
Yeah, no fourth land drop's a pretty big deal. These Esper control decks really want to hit essentially all of their land drops for the first 5 or 6 turns, if not more than that. So this Karn sticking here means a lot from me, right? At least from what I'm picking up, because Jonathan Rosum has to have an answer for this Karn, or else he would have taken it with a Thought Erasure. Instead, opting to take that Siege Gang Commander, I guess he doesn't have Kaya's Wrath. He needed the 4th lane and the Kaya's Wrath in order to check it. So instead to take the safer route by taking the Siege Gang, and going to use Vraska's Contempt here to take down this Karn.
Yeah, so the play for Keith was that Karn. He's going to minus it right away and make that Matthias Hunt math bot. On Rosum's turn, he does pick up the 4th land. He'll Shock for a Watery Grave, down to 17. Vraska's Contempt right back to 19.
Yeah, funny thing about the Matthias Hunt math bot is wearing a hat.
Of course it's wearing a hat.
Why not?
Matthias comes across for 1. Jonathan Rosum should be falling to 18 here. Follow-up will be Carnival, the backside of, or Carnage rather, the backside of Carnival. Yeah,
this is a card that I've been very impressed with both sides. And, it's always great to see modal cards like these split cards from Ravnica block that allow you to basically have a card that's really good against the low-to-the-ground aggro decks, as well as useful, if not very good, against the control strategies.
So Rosum did discard a Chemist's Insight and a Teferi to that Carnage. He dropped to 18, or to 15 rather. On his turn, he had an Insight and a Swamp for the turn. Back on Keith's side, attack with the Matthias. Rosum went to 13 after a Goblin Chain Whirler followed that up, and we're back on Rosum's side.
Search for Escante here from Rosum. It's going to transform pretty quickly, and if he can take care of the threats that are on the battlefield, he's going to leave Jody stranded with a couple of removal spells and not a lot of other action.
Construct and Chain Whirler attacked. Rosum had a Mortify for the Chain Whirler, though the Construct connected. And Treasure Map is the follow-up for Keith.
Yeah, it looks like Rosum has a Teferi in hand, and with the transform here of this Escanta, this is a pretty big deal.
Rosum now at 12 after that attack. Looks with the search, decides to keep it, and he will draw for turn after transforming to Escanta the Sunken Rune.
Yeah, notably leaving on top, it looks like he picked up an Absorb. If he draws a land, he can hold up Absorb as well as the activation of Escanta. Seems like he missed, but he's going to be fairly well set up and protected on the following turn.
Teferi transforms, or pluses rather, that'll untap 2 lands, leaves up that Absorb as you mentioned too as we go back to Keith. Been hanging out on just the 4 mana sources as he activates Treasure Map.
Yeah, there was a little bit of life total confusion a moment ago. The Treasure Map actually pumps that Matthias artifact construct. It is power and toughness equal to the number of total artifacts you control, not just the equal number of constructs that Karn creates. That's why you see it having a lot more play in things like Vintage and sometimes even Legacy.
It's just good deck building. Rixmati Reveler, pre-combat for Jody Keith. He's going to pitch away that Lava Coil. No need for that in this matchup. Attacks with that 2/2 construct, and that'll need a Moment of Craving. Pretty good swing for Rosum. He'll gain 2 life off of that. Should be going to 14 here.
Yeah, this is the part where Esper Control really starts to look like it's playing a different game entirely. Jody Keith's early aggression was stifled At this point, we have a transformed Escanto the Sunken Ruin. We have an active Teferi that's not only untapping that, but just giving you more mana and more cards. Rosum here activates main phase Escanto, looking for, I guess, a removal spell. But, I mean, he's already got an Absorb in hand. What else do you want?
Suppose there's a strong argument to be a little bit more aggressive with your Escanto on your turn when you have Teferi active, just because you'll get enough mana to cast one spell this turn.
Right. No, that's definitely true. You want to make sure you can use that 2 mana appropriately. And even if it's just activating Escanto the Sunken Ruin, that's still very, very powerful.
Isolated Chapel added to the battlefield for Rosum. He'll untap that Escanto and another land. 5 mana hanging out there as he passes to Keith, who will scry with the treasure map. Keith now does have 5 mana at the ready, could potentially start deploying Siege Gang Commanders. And maybe a little bit more mana as goes his turn. We'll see if he scries again upkeep with that treasure map.
Yeah, in this spot, Keith is super far behind. He has the potential to catch up here because of that Eldest Reborn that he does have in hand. But when we know that Rosum has an Absorb that's going to take care of that and protect that Teferi for some time to come.
After drawing, Keith goes ahead and activates that treasure map the 3rd time. He'll scry to the bottom, transform into Treasure Cove, makes his 3 treasure tokens before attacking the Reveler at the Teferi. Teferi goes down to 4.
Now, Eldest Reborn and 2 shocks here could be a way for Jody Keith to be able to take care of that Teferi.
Yeah, Eldest Reborn was cast. That was met very quickly by Absorb for Rosum. Rosum should be going to 17 here.
Yeah, and even though you see some chip damage going at the Teferi, Rosum's life total is even more padded by things like Absorb and Moment of Craving. The attacks here are going to be lined up at Teferi, so every time that Teferi gets chunked a little bit, that just means Rosum gets to play more turns, which allows him to activate Escanto more times.
Thought Erasure is where Rosum will start in his turn. He still knows about a shock that's been hanging out in Keith's hand, though there is another card he wants to get a look at. Keith thinking about responding. He does have those 2 uncracked treasure tokens. Maybe just fires the shock off here.
Yeah, he has Shock and 2 Lava Coils, effectively 2 dead cards. Rosum with no creatures in the main deck other than 1 copy of Lyra Dawnbringer. Looks like he's not even playing the one of Chromium that started to pick up a lot in popularity as of late.
Keith does decide to crack that treasure token and fire off Shock. That'll target Teferi. It's good. Teferi to 2. And Rosum will plus that back to 3. Thought Erasure took a Lava Coil.
Yeah, Rosum here going to opt to activate his Escanto the Sunken Ruin on his own main phase and untapping that with the untap ability from Teferi. So he has the option to end of turn make another Escanto activation or cast one of the spells from hand.
A strong pickup. Vraska's Contempt was revealed to the Sunken Ruin. On Keith's side, he'll attack the Reveler. Teferi down to 1. Keith will use that last treasure token with the Treasure Cove to draw a card. And the pickup, Rekindling Phoenix, he'll deploy that. Though we all know about that Vraska's Contempt. Yeah,
the Vraska's Contempt revealed last turn off of the Escanto the Sunken Ruin. And at this point, it's all elementary. Rosum's drawing a card for turn, plussing the Teferi every turn. That's 2 cards. And then it looks like he's getting at least 1 activation from Escanto the Sunken Ruin, sometimes 2.
Yeah, with the abundance of mana there, Rosum just went ahead and activated Escanto end step, found Moment of Craving. On his turn, he'll plus it to Teferi, and now he should start cleaning up this battlefield and pretty firmly in the driver's seat with a very healthy life total at this point.
Yeah, and doesn't even go for the Vraska's Contempt, opting to save that for a future Planeswalker. Going to go with Kaya's Wrath, which will take care of the Rixmati Reveler, and burning the cast down to kill that elemental token created by the Phoenix.
Yeah, really nice sequencing. I like the play there by Rosum a lot, conserving that Vraska's Contempt in case he runs afoul of a Planeswalker or something like that.
Yeah, I have to imagine Jody's going to pick it up here real soon.
Well, you called it. Jody Keith picks up his card.
I didn't know it would be that soon.
Right.
But I figured it would be pretty soon.
Writing was on the wall as Rosum does take the first game in this match here.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the Cardboard Live extension, you'll be able to see the full deck list of each player as well as the sideboard, but we're going to put it up on the screen for you right now and go over how we think each player is going to sideboard. Let's start with Jody Keith.
Yeah, down a game on Rakdos mid-range. His options here that he has available to fight the Esper control deck. He has 4 Duress, 3 Legion War Boss, 2 Fiery Cannonade, 2 Theater of Horrors, a Fight with Fire, a Status, a Shock, and a Drill Bit. What do you like here, Todd?
So there's always a really tricky way to sideboard against the Esper control decks when you're a mid-range or a control deck of yourself. your instinct is always to cut all your removal spells, right? All your lava coils, your shocks, things like that. Unfortunately, the way that all of the Esper control decks are sideboarding includes 4 copies of Thief of Sanity. So sideboarding out all of your removal is a bit terrifying and can lead to really snowball games after sideboard with that Thief of Sanity. So Jody's a heads-up player. He's going to leave in some number of removal spells. I expect Shock to be the one he leaves in. Other than that, though, he can definitely get out the lava coils. Probably going to side out the Carnival Carnage, even though the back half in Carnage is useful on occasion. 4 mana is quite a bit for that effect. And since the front half is not good, he can get that out. We're going to be bringing in Duress. We're going to be bringing in Legion Warboss. We're going to be bringing in Theater of Horrors and the Drill Bit. And I think all those cards are going to allow him a bit more play after sideboard and a few less dead cards.
Yeah, heavy sideboarding on Keith's side. For John Rosum, what he has brought to the table: 4 Thief of Sanity, 3 Duress, 2 Hostage Taker, 2 Basilica Bellhaunt, a Cast Down, a Moment of Craving, a Cry of the Carnarium, and a second Lyra Dawnbringer out of the board. What do you think he's going to do here?
Honestly, I don't see a bad option from Jonathan Rossum's sideboard, and it really just depends on how well he knows the matchup. I think Thief Sandy is an obvious slam dunk. He knows that the Rakdos mid-range decks are probably going to side out most of their removal spells, and if it ever hits the opponent one time, you get the best of the top 3 cards, and that's always where you want to be with a 3-mana creature that just creates these snowball effects. The Duresses, they can be hit or miss. They can take away a Planeswalker from your opponent, or something like Banefire after sideboard. Even early on, snagging a treasure map can be a pretty huge deal. Not the hugest fan of Hostage Taker. Basilica Bellhaunt is okay. It allows you to gain some life, which can buffer you against things like Banefire, so may want those, but those are more primarily for the low-to-the-ground mono-red decks.
Yeah, so you have the deck list here on the Cardboard Live extension, and if you're looking for a place to try out these standard decks, maybe check out a Star City Games game night.
Ooh.
Also, at the month of February, we're going to have unique tokens and sleeves. It's going to be Yeti Steady Go as a promotion for this month. You can find information on this at go.starcitygames.com/game night.
I know I've said this a lot, but this one is by far my favorite. Yeti Steady Go. It's super cute. A wonderful addition to the creature collection.
Yeah, sometimes the art is just super adorable, and this one is a slam dunk in that department. Absolutely.
Yeah, both players here effectively finished sideboarding. They're just figuring out the last couple cards, and this is sometimes the hardest part, I personally, I know that a lot of times I'll get down to about 12, 13, 14 cards on my sideboard, and I just got to figure out that last one to cut. And half the time, I'm probably making a mistake. Sideboarding is one of the most difficult aspects of Magic. And if you're watching this and you're primarily a Magic Arena player and you are normally playing a best of 1, sideboarding is a huge part of Magic the Gathering, and you're really doing yourself a disservice by not playing those best of 3 queues.
Talk about a player who can figure sideboarding out, though. John Rossum is somebody who really just exploded onto the SCG Tour. If you look at his stats from last year, 19 open plays with 8 top 8s and a win.
That's crazy.
That's incredible. All-time 11 top 8s. Just the 1 win, but still pretty good for a 20-year-old from Spencer, Massachusetts.
Yeah, when I was 20, I don't even know if I had a job. I was nearly homeless for a year.
Yeah, when I was 20, I was in college and medium employed. The student help kind of quote-unquote work.
Yeah, I mean, no, at that point I was working at the Macaroni Grill. I don't know if you've ever eaten there before.
I have not.
It's okay.
What do they serve there?
Well, if you ask nicely, they'll bring you the whole grill to eat.
Oh, wow.
But it comes with a side of macaroni. But that's the whole menu. Macaroni and the grill.
I can get behind that. I like really heavily specialized places.
Sure.
This is what we do.
Yeah.
It's a macaroni joint.
All right, Jonathan Rosum, that's his player slide. He sings and acts. He's been in the melody in a number of musicals, including Ultra Cup and Footloose. That's a pretty interesting little tidbit about Mr. Rosum.
He sings, acts, and uses Axe body spray. He stayed with me for the Minneapolis RPTQ, and I was very upset that he just busted out that can and ruined the smell of my apartment for a week.
When you're 20, you just don't know any better.
Right. Get you some cologne, John. We're underway for Game 2. Cinder Barons for Jody Keith. Trades with the Tap Water Grave for John Rossum. And Blood Crypt taps turn 2 for Jody. Not getting on the battlefield just yet.
No, but that's okay. As long as he has these real big breakouts on turn 3, 4, and 5, he's going to hopefully put Rosum under enough pressure where he can kind of grind him out. And you see here that Theater of Horrors could play a huge role in the coming turns.
Yeah, Glacial Fortress into Thought Erasure for Rosum. Gets a look at the hand. There's an Eldest Reborn, a Mountain, Theater of Horrors. That one's hitting the bin. Siege Gang Commander, Direfleet Daredevil, and a Dragon Skull Summit. Yeah,
as you can see, that's a really scary card from the Esper control side of things. If Rosum didn't have a Mortify in hand, that has to be the take.
Yeah, you really got to get this one off the table. Something to keep in mind about Theater of Horrors is unlike some other variants of this card, you just keep the cards in exile under it. If you ever deal damage, you can hit them. But here's a huge draw for Jody Keith. Legion Warboss on turn 3 off that Dragon Skull Summit. It's off to the races. There's that Goblin token. Cedric Phillips comes across for 1.
Warboss is right. Cedric Phillips is my boss. Coming in for 1, playing the Goblin Rabble Master look very well. Legion Warboss here, a huge threat. Even if Rosum's able to clean up that Warboss right now, that 1/1 spells upwards of 5-6 damage over the course of the rest of this game. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of this plays out, just based on that extra 1/1.
Yeah, Rosum to 19. It was a big look for a removal spell there. He does have the Dawn Catacomb into Mortify, though. It takes care of the Warboss itself, as Jody Keith will follow up with an attack for Rosum to 18. And here's that Direfleet Daredevil. That'll flash back that Thought Erasure. Look at Rosum's hand. We have a Watery Grave, Absorb, Lyra Dawnbringer, Negate, and Hallowed Fountain.
Yeah, this is a huge play for Jody Keith. That Direfleet Daredevil really showing off what it can do in these sideboard games. You know, taking a Thought Erasure, casting it for yourself, stripping the control player of one of their biggest cards, whether that's a key piece of interaction with a counterspell, a key piece of removal that takes care of one of your creatures that might not necessarily, like, you know, taking away like a Mortify when you're about to play a creature that doesn't die to like Moment of Craving. Those discard spells, especially the Duresses after board as well, could really start to add up.
Absorb was the take off the Thought Erasure. Keith will send things back to Rosum, plays that Hallowed Fountain tapped. Rosum's got to be suspicious that Keith has some kind of answer to that Lyra.
Yeah, no kidding. Lyra is pretty terrifying, honestly, from most red mages. But this Rakdos deck does have black mana, and black is traditionally very good at dealing with large creatures. Looks like Jody actually is kind of setting Rosum up with an Eldest Reborn on the following turn. If Rosum slays that Lyra Dawnbringer here, that could be all over.
Yeah, the Daredevil and the Goblin came across. Rosum to 15. Follow-up, Siege Gang Commander. That's why he took the Absorb. You can't negate that one.
Yeah, and again, that's a really key piece of why you know, those discard effects are so powerful against control. He was able to take away the Absorb, stick a creature-based threat on the following turn, stranding that negate.
And Rosum knows something up, so he's going to play Thought Erasure here over the Angels, takes that Eldest Reborn and leaves Jody with the Carnival in hand. Surveil is going to put Search for Escanta into the graveyard. Watery Grave tapped, and we'll go back to Keith.
I think it's Kai's Wrath or bust. We're going to swing in here for quite a bit of damage. Looks like 8, putting Rosum down to 7. If he just passes turn, Jody Keith can throw a whole bunch of goblins in Rosum's face.
Yep, plenty of mana, plenty of goblins. No real reason to do anything else here.
No, and with the Carnival Carnage still in hand, he can wait for the Kai's Wrath, throw 2 goblins at the dome, untap, cast the Carnage for the win.
Things looking real good for Keith here. Lyra a bit slow when you get this far behind. John Rosum will draw.
I mean, you're just seeing the snowball effects of that turn 4 Direfleet Daredevil and Thought Erasure. Everything after that turn has gone so smoothly for Jody Keith. That's where it all fell apart for Rosum. Let's see if he can figure out a way to get back into this game.
And you see kind of the weakness of strategies like Esper Control when they have these kind of inefficient cards like Mortify that are trying to catch a bunch of different things. When your opponent just curves out, has some good value cards, you fall behind very quickly, and you see Jody Keith's going to tie things up. Players are at 1-1 in this match.
Yeah, that was a really well-played game, well-executed from Jody Keith. Timely top deck with that Legion Warboss, and you saw how many points of damage that single token did. Even if Rosum had a sweeper, he was at such a low life total, and it basically all worked out perfectly for Jody. Even if Rosum had that Kai's Wrath on the pivotal turn there at the end of the game, Jody going to throw a couple goblins at the head, untap, and play that exact lethal Carnage.
So we're watching some great Magic here at SCG Dallas at the Standard Open. But if you want even more Magic, say during the week, maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Maybe Tuesdays and Thursdays. What? Those are the days that I'm on camera at work.
1 p.m. Eastern Time on Versus Live,
Ooh.
in fact.
Yeah, so Versus Live, I do this with Ross Merrim every Tuesday and Thursday. We explore all the constructed formats that we run here on the SCG Tour, whether that's Standard, Modern, or Legacy. Legacy, not so much, because we put a pretty big emphasis recently on Standard and Modern. But you can check that out every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. at twitch.tv/SCG Tour. That's right here. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to check it out live every Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m.
Yeah, you can also check the old YouTube videos from previous broadcasts. Ton of great content there. Now, Jody Keith, another player we see pretty regularly here on the tour. He's 10 years John Rosum senior from New Orleans. He has 14 Opens played last year with 2 top 8s. Doesn't have Rosum's win, but he does have a win lifetime with 6 top 8s.
Yeah, if you had told me that Jody Keith was younger than me, I would have not have believed you. Because when I was around, 24, 25, Jody was telling me some crazy stories. He used to be a cab driver in New Orleans, and you would not believe some of the stuff that came out of his mouth. We used to play the Jody Keith game, we called it. So, and he was into this too. We would just name 2 nouns, just any 2 nouns, and he would try to think of a story involving both nouns.
Oh, wow.
And one time I was just like, okay, I'm going to say gun and Magic Online. And he came up with one. He had someone got into his cab and said they had just got robbed at gunpoint and asked if they could pay him in Magic Online tickets.
Wow. Small world.
Yeah.
Wild world.
Yeah. Let's take a look and see if both players are ready to go down in the feature match area. Getting ready here for Game 3. Looks like Rosum is recontemplating his sideboard choices.
Yeah, like you were saying, I am younger than Jody, but not as much as I am comfortable with.
That man's got some life experiences.
He's done some living.
Look, I got nothing but love for Mr. Keith. Me and him go way back. And, I'm trying to be unbiased here because I really like Rosum too. But
the double bias.
But you put a Magic Online in my head, and I gotta go with Jody on this one.
Rosum streams a little bit. Not sure how much he does it anymore, but I remember watching his stream one time. He was just streaming on a laptop, so he just had one screen. So he was toggling between chat and his match. That's a rough setup.
It's not good. Don't like that one.
Yeah, he's in college.
Oh, it's fair.
It's tough. Resources are tough. He is on the play in this game, though. Watery Grave tapped. See what Keith brings to the table. Maybe get some duress action going. Starting off with a tapped Blood Grab. He'll shock for that to 18, and duress will be the play. We'll get a look at Rosum's hand here. Yeah,
duress here, one of the discard effects that we're bringing in, and it looks like it could be pretty good here.
Looks like Isolated Chapel, Absorb, Hostage Taker, Hallowed Fountain, Thought Erasure, and second Absorb.
Yeah, it does does have the second blue. Joe decides to take Thought Erasure, going to protect one of the cards in his hand. I'm curious what it is. Ooh, that was a nice one off the top.
Yeah, search for Escantas, the draw and the play. There's that Isolated Chapel casting that. And now Rosum kind of gets to sit on 2 Absorb. A lot of pressure for Keith to get on the battlefield quickly.
Yeah, and he's thinking about just casting this Naked Direfleet Daredevil here on turn 2. That could, potentially stifle the Search for Escanta from transforming and get in some damage while Rosum kind of sits on his hands with those 2 copies of Absorb. I kind of like the play, not going to lie. It looks like Jody Keith's hand is literally just Rekindling Phoenix and Carnival Carnage otherwise, and nothing really that really warrants anything but the Absorbs,
Yeah, Mountain, just a second turn play for Keith. Rosum is going to keep a card on top with a search and shock Hollowed Fountain. He'll go to 18, represent those Absorbs. Back on Keith's side, second Mountain. And there's Treasure Map. Is that worth an Absorb? It is.
Yeah, most of the cards from Jody Keith's side of things are going to be met with Absorb. The problem is he's not doing any damage in the meantime. But that Direfleet Daredevil does represent basically an extra Thought Erasure here in just a moment. So here, if Jody casts literal any spell, Rosum here is heavily incentivized to cast Absorb on it because he has that Teferi in hand that he can play next turn.
Yeah, so Rosum went to 21 there. He kept another card with Search for Escanta. Back on Keith's side, Daredevil's the play. That's met with another Absorb. Rosum to 24. Mountain is the follow-up for Keith, but no additional plays. Rossum's going to take another look with that Search for Escanta. 3 cards in the graveyard, so a bit off of transforming that here. He keeps a card, and it is Thief of Sanity. That's the play.
Yeah, that's a real good one, but no 5th land here from Rosum means that Teferi, that really kind of perfect curve that he was looking for, is a bit off. But he could have been the Thief of Sanity if he so chose. So he's putting so much merit on the Thief of Sanity that he is opting for that over the potential of playing Teferi on that turn.
Yeah, so you think about the plays that Keith has made in this game to go off of. Early he duress Thought Erasure, and now he's using the Daredevil to try to hit a discard spell. You kind of wonder, if Rosum is just kind of favored against any kind of, by deploying any kind of threat, Keith doesn't really have an answer, and it seems that way. Rekindling Phoenix is the play for Keith.
Yeah, and Rosum, without a true answer just yet, do not believe. He has a Teferi in hand. If he hits that 5th land, he can just go Teferi minus on the Rekindling Phoenix and then attack with the Thief of Sanity and potentially get that Rekindling Phoenix if he so chooses.
Yeah, and he still has that Hostage Taker in hand. He could just try to kidnap it for a turn and see what happens. Thinking here on the upkeep, Search for Escanta. It keeps a card on top.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of going for Hostage Taker without a way to play the creature immediately. Things can just go so wrong. And even though this Teferi is going to be vulnerable to a shock or a hasted creature or something like that, I do love the Teferi plus minus to effectively permanently deal with this Rekindling Phoenix. And then the attack with Thief Sanity is getting essentially a free card whenever it hits.
Yeah, so Rosum shocked off a Godless Shrine. There's the Teferi. Still at 22, though. Plenty of life. And here's a hit with Thief of Sanity. Where's that Rekindling Phoenix at?
It's the 3rd down. Teferi tucks it to the 3rd down, and then Thief Sanity can choose to steal it if he wants to. But Rosum could also take something like a Banefire, a removal spell, or something like that. But with just 2 lands in the Phoenix, goes for the Phoenix. And now Jody, at the very least, knows what that hidden card is.
Yeah, pretty nice turn there for Rosum as we go back to Keith. He's going to have to clean up this battlefield a little bit here. 5 lands and looks like maybe 2 more in hand. And I believe he has a copy of the Eldest Reborn. It's a little bit mopey against multiple threats, though.
Legion Warboss in hand. Carnival Carnage has been sitting there for a while. The front half deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Jody could use that to take care of the Teferi if he so chooses. But it is not something that comes up on the card very often. There's a chance he may have missed it.
And unfortunately, you can't Carnage down a Planeswalker. It's just going to be your opponent off of that. Used to be able to Blightning Planeswalkers, but it was a different era.
All right, looks like knows what his cards do. That's lucky for him.
Yeah.
I expected him to, but in my head, I could not quite remember if it was the front half. I thought one side could hit a Planeswalker, and I wasn't sure exactly which.
Yeah, Carnival goes ahead and takes care of the Teferi. There's Mountain. Here's Siege Gang Commander. Pretty strong play.
Yeah, this is a nice follow-up here from Jody, using the Carnival to kill the 1 loyalty Teferi. Following that up with a Siege Gang Commander and really putting Rosum to the test. If he can find an answer for the Siege Gang Commander proper, that's going to make it so Jody Keith is left with essentially just 3 kind of do-nothing Goblin tokens, since Rosum's at a pretty high life total, and will have probably like a Hostage Taker on defense next turn, as well as the potential for that Rekindling Phoenix to come down right now.
So here's a hit with the Thief of Sanity. 3 looks, 2 lands, and that's
a
drill bit?
Sure is. And for 1 mana, the Spectacle cost can be played, as well as that Rekindling Phoenix or Hostage Taker, depending on which he prefers.
Yeah, he'll see what's going on in Keith's hand. Fires off the drill bit. Legion Warboss was the last card. It is gone. And there is Hostage Taker. Rosum's going for broke. He's going to grab that Siege Gang Commander.
Love
that
it.
Protects his Thief of Sanity as well. We'll see what Keith draws. Treasure Map, that's not going to do it. This is a huge swing in Rosum's favor.
Yeah, and that Escanta is still churning as well, fixing the draws for Rosum. He is completely in the driver's seat. Casting that Siege Gang Commander, no longer hindered by just being under the Hostage Taker with the threat of it potentially taking over the game. And now things swinging heavily in favor of Rosum.
And Rosum with no red mana, he won't be able to fire these goblins off, but 5 bodies is still pretty reasonable. Does a great job of checking those goblin tokens.
How's a second Siege Gang Commander sound?
Yeah, that Thief of Sanity hit was real good there, and Keith is down to 12.
Yeah, and you're really starting to see what I mean when a Thief Sanity connects, it starts to snowball. Even if Jody somehow miraculously finds a way out of the things that are currently in play, he still has to deal with another Siege Gang Commander and a Rekindling Phoenix from Rosum's side of things.
Couple scries to the bottom off that treasure map for Keith, and he finds a pretty big one. It's Siege Gang Commander is the play for turn.
Yeah, and if he gets to untap with it here, there's a chance he can use that to shoot down the Thief of Sanity, and then he can shoot down the Siege Gang Commander, and then maybe even start attacking.
Rosum is going to start his turn with an attack from the Thief of Sanity. Get another 3 looks at Keith's deck here. Shock among them. That's a really easy answer to the Siege Gang proper. Also have Vraska's Contempt in the holdings.
Yeah, and even though it looks like both players have a lot going on, just Rosum with so much access to more of these powerful effects. You know, he has the shock here to take care of the Siege Gang Commander. It's like 6 tokens versus a bunch of creatures that are just way better than those tokens.
Yeah, shocks the commander, and there's Hostage Taker on that treasure map. Will not allow Jody to transform that, and he's just got to take a random draw off the deck. Needs a pretty big one.
Yeah, Hostage Taker, one of those few like Oblivion Ring effects on a creature, but instead of just it can hit creatures or artifacts, whereas normally you would see that type of effect only take care of creatures.
Jody going to take a look at his graveyard here, see what's left in his deck. The Thief of Sanity did mill over quite a lot of cards.
Right, and notably those don't go in the bottom of the deck. You're actually pushing your opponent towards decking by 2 of them going into the graveyard each time.
That card is really good and constructed, and he was even better in limited for that reason. We go to Rosum's side again. I think Keith had drawn a Legion War Boss, but is just going to bluff with that one, I suppose.
Yeah, not a huge reason to cast it here. That Goblin is basically forced to be made and will just run head first into one of the 2/2 bodies. And Keith doesn't really want to send all of his creatures in, so opting to save that bit of information.
And Rosum is going to transform his search for Escanta by putting a Thief of Sanity from the top into the graveyard. Going to surveil his battlefield position, see if he's ready to attack with more than just a Thief of Sanity. Though he is very far ahead on the battlefield currently.
Yeah, I mean, this game is very close to done. Jody Keith's deck does have a couple of really powerful cards that could potentially help him get back in this game, but Siege Gang Commander is one of those, and all 3 of them are gone. He's cast 2, 1 was stolen, and 1 is currently sitting face down on the table under the Thief Sanity's ability.
So Rosum, pre-combat main phase, cast that treasure map under the Hostage Taker, and here's a swing with the whole team. 3 Goblin tokens, Siege Gang Commander, 2 Hostage Taker, and Thief of Sanity. Keith has 6 Goblins hanging out to block, but he has to get busy blocking.
Right. One of the easiest ways for a deck like Jody Keith's Rakdos midrange deck to come back in this scenario is the really potent combination of Status Statue plus Goblin Chain Whirler, but that's not something that's in his deck. And unfortunately for him, that Thief Sanity just ran away with the game. John Rosum takes it in an easy